that somehow we've turned that phrase, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, there's no power but in God, or Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakil, that Allah is sufficient for me. We Muslims for centuries responded to calamities by making these statements. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. But these statements are not supposed to represent resignation. These statements, in fact, are an acknowledgement that because all power rests in God, then there is always the possibility of radical change. And this is something that is embodied by the sunnah of our Prophet. Because never did the Prophet ﷺ himself make these statements and resign and submit. Never did the Prophet ﷺ make these statements and resign and submit. But invariably, the Prophet ﷺ, his sunnah embodied the principle that if and when these statements were made, they were always accompanied by the realization that because all power rests in Allah, then you should never accept the inevitability of defeat, or the inevitability of failure, or the inevitability of weakness, or the inevitability of evil, or the inevitability of darkness. In other words, you utter these statements as a declaration of war, not as resignation and surrender. You utter these statements as a declaration that, in fact, you will exercise your own intentionality to bring about radical change.